Here we go again, week 35 of trading in 2016. What are the markets doing? The chart that you see is the DAX performance index, the index of Germany, and a couple of weeks back, a month back, we talked about this market breaking out to the upside. If you take a look, the all-time high is right there at some 12,000 points, and you get this correction here that fails nicely here in this previous corrective area, and now it has been breaking fractals to the upside, even though after the breakout the market is pausing a little bit, looking for some breath. This week closes really strong, or strong enough actually, to see this continue up. I don't know why people are talking about tops and markets coming down. If you look at the US indices, you will see the same picture. I don't see this coming down. What charts are they looking at that they see this coming down? Of course, if you look at the monthly Nasdaq, which this is the chart of right now, you can see that we have the momentum high in the indicator down here, which corresponds to this area, and this is quite the huge move. And if the market continues higher, which it does right now, it will take quite a bit of steam to get the momentum to new highs, not making a new divergence, or making a divergence in the first place. And we don't know if that will happen, but even if there is a divergence, of course it could be a really quick thing, just coming a little bit higher and then dropping, which would be preceded by the price also only making a few points, or going a few points higher than the previous uptrends high, which is this here, and then coming down, trading into the balance zone, giving you the fractal to the downside, and then heading into a major correction in the indicator, which would also mean that the price is coming below the balance zone like this, correcting, coming down again. I don't see this on the horizon as of now. Nobody knows if this extended move now, which will give you the divergence or maybe going higher, it could take quite a while to unfold. It's not going to turn from one day to the next. If you look at the weekly chart, there is no fractal to the downside as of now. You will get that fractal before the breakout, or before the actual move to the downside is going to happen on the weekly chart. So in my opinion, we do have a lot of time left for this to come higher, or at least to go sideways, before this long position that has been triggered here at the blue line is stopped out, then the fractal, then the move down. Right now it's a long, and this week closed pretty strongly as well. Let's take a look at the beloved gold. Last week we were talking about this getting a little bit scarier since it's trading into the balance zone, but as you can see this week, it's already bouncing out of it at least a little bit. I mean, you don't want to see too much volatility on the weekly chart. If you get a wig down to the blue line and then a bounce, that would be quite the price action. Let's be happy with whatever the market delivers to us, and right now it has been trading back up. The breakouts are right there where you see the arrows. That is your fractal breakout zones, and maybe this market will continue higher for the end, or until the end of the year. When you look at the daily chart and you mark these fractals, which in the end tell you where the market changed its behavior, which essentially means this is where the demand lies. You see this market turning around exactly at that point right here. Now it could go lower, it could come all the way into this area here. Nobody really knows. Maybe this is just an internal pullback in this corrective move, and we will see it coming down. Let's simply wait and see. Trade what the system tells us to trade. We can see the levels here again. The first one has been penetrated quite nicely, and now we are hoping it will continue up. The fractal inside the balance zone will be the point where our stop moves to in our long positions, triggered in this area. to be stopped out in case this does not go higher. Right now there is no fractal. If we're lucky, the next 2 weeks will be higher. This will be the new fractal, and then we'll see what's going to happen. Our stop is going to be making at least a little bit of money here. If the trend doesn't get going, it doesn't get going. There's nothing that we can really do about it. The euro dollar has been of interest as well. You do see a negative week this week. You have a new fractal. This is your new stop right above here. The fractal has been formed, and market changed its mind, didn't want to go higher at that point. We have been short, or I've been short from this short breakout there. Let's see if we'll see this thing go to parity or not. Just wait and let the market do its thing, follow the system. This short is still working, even though it has been quite the pain in the last couple of weeks. What has also been of interest here is the Australian New Zealand dollar. You have your downtrend, you have your correction, you have your downtrend, and a bigger correction here, and the first breakout occurred at the bottom of the correction. Of course, after this quite huge move, you do get some internal corrective market mode, which first has to be finished in order for this to continue. You have your fractal breakout that continues the trend here. If you didn't enter on that, you still have your chance to get in here. This market will reach this low most likely, since the trend, this previous trend, is simply continued after all of this sort of correction. Usually we are looking for a fractal somewhere here in this area, which gives us the much better entry, but of course it's not us to choose what the market is supposed to do. We are only able to take from the market whatever it might be offering to us. Also of interest in the last couple of weeks, British pound pairs in the forex market. This week, the third week in a row in the British pound Australian, that is higher, but it's not really worrying that this market has been trading up. All of these entries are taken. It's below the balance zone, and it is just not important how price behaves as long as it stays in a trend mode below the balance zone. If you're really interested in what your positions are doing, you can take a look at the lower time frame, looking for your supply zones, and you will find them right there. The thicker line here, that was really bad. The thicker line here, thicker line will show you where the demand is lying. Where the supply is lying, and where people are going to sell. You have a lot of sell orders lying around here. You get your major correction in the AO. This one here is the minor correction that usually precedes the major correction, and now price could come higher, but it's not going, most likely not going to end this downtrend and then continue lower. If you just check out the overall time frame here, look at how down this actually is. The monthly chart has been in a downtrend, it has been corrective, and now it's very likely we'll see these lows. Of course, trading on such high time frames takes a lot of patience, and you gotta wait for these massive market moves, which could probably take a year to unfold. And managing the trade during that year is probably even harder than picking the right direction of where the market's going to go, simply because you get greedy, you get impatient, and stuff like this will throw you off your game. But it shouldn't, it mustn't. So pay attention not to the money, pay attention to how well your process is running and how well you are executing whatever your system is. Now this is just one system. This is the system that I like, that's what I trade. Doesn't matter if you do anything else, if you are more shorter term. Just do whatever makes sense to you. Make sure you have it back tested, make sure you have faith in it, and just follow through with it. Give the market the room that it needs according to your system, and then it's almost inevitable that you will make profits. Even if this fails, the risk is calculated in a way that you will get out at least at the break-even point, or lose only very, very few amounts of money, and we'll be there when the trend is happening, and we're willing to risk some percentage of our equity as the trend is running. And this is the case here still. Let's simply wait it out. Let's not get into it. Let's not fumble around in the market in the positions that are running. Let's just let the market do whatever it needs to do. We don't know. We have no idea. We're not professionals. We have no professional understanding in any of these currencies or in any of the indices. I think it's pretty arrogant to say that you do have a professional understanding in it, unless you have been working in the field full time for a decade or something like that. And even then, you have no idea about how the correlations and the fundamentals of the market are actually going to influence the price. It would be best to just stick to the price and pay attention to what the price does in the first place, because everything that there is going to be reflected in the price, and that's the bottom line. Also getting interesting here, in my opinion, for the end of the year trading, if you take a look at the New Zealand dollar, Australian dollar will show you a little bit of a different picture, but it's the same theory behind it. You have your uptrends. Let me put in some lines here. With your divergence, if you want to roughly, very roughly put it like that, and you can see it in the indicator down here that there is divergence. And now the entire move from down here all the way to up here is corrected in this. The thing is that most likely this correction here is not over. This is just the first leg, the first part of the correction, and it's very likely we'll see this coming down more, in my opinion. No fractal on the monthly to break out to the upside. Instead, price is coming up to the blue line, which is the long-term resistance area here. If you now take this lower, and we'll skip the weekly here for a second and go to the daily chart, look at this mess. I mean, look at how it moves from this low of the previous downtrend to the high of the what I think is a correction. There, except for this movement here and this movement here, the rest is complete BS and not a tradable trend for my system, for my perception of a market trend. This is no fun to be in. This is no fun to trade breakouts off. Look at how many fractals. Look at how they are triggered and how immediately price comes back. And it does that 1, it does it 2, it does that 3 times in a row. And you're gonna be stopped out all the time because you're going against the overall trend. As we just saw on the weekly, the overall trend is down, so why buy? Right now, what we get is divergence from this point here all the way back to here. You see the high being lower than this high, but you see the indicator being higher than back here. Now you have your fractal breakout on this daily chart in the New Zealand dollar at that area here, at that point. And if that is going to be hit, it's my opinion that if we now switch to the weekly chart, we'll see a price drop down into the balance zone on the weekly. This is where your weekly fractal occurs. You get a move back up, and then the trend continues down. If that is going to happen, it can take a long time. It's not going to happen, probably, most likely, until the end of the year, but it may actually give you the fractal in the next coming months, and then for 2017 you have something to follow to the downside. As I said, almost the same in the Australian dollar. Make sure when you trade such a system, such a trend following system, you always have your watch list. You always know what you're looking at, and you're following it through, no matter how bored you get, because this is really boring. All you do is making yourself available to perceive the opportunities the market is handing to you. the rest is completely out of your control. The only thing you really can control is how you think about the market, where your stop is. So essentially, how you deal with it and how much you lose. You'll never be able to force the market into a place where you want it to trade or how much you can make. Therefore, this is just an idea as of this moment because we are trading above the balance zone. It looks pretty straight up. Usually this isn't shaken out too quickly, but since the monthly has been hitting the blue line, the longer term resistance, by the way, this corresponds exactly with this sort of area here, the previous correction, and it's very likely that in some sort of way maybe it will trade higher. We'll see it coming down, create that fractal, and then drop. Let's see if that's the case, and enjoy the next trading week after the longer weekend, as I've heard in the USA. See you soon.